Hey guys, it's me, srna Paul. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I hope the month of January was a good start of the year for you. I had a Q&A recently on my Instagram and I got a lot of good questions on CRNA school, applying, my finances, and everything else in between. I have my Propofol mug with my coffee in it. Cheers. How's CRNA school? So I'm currently in my 6th semester out of 9. Absolutely unreal. Time has flown by so incredibly fast. Days feel so long sometimes when you're in clinical or when you're studying, but the months just go by so fast. When you start a semester, it just flies by and it'll be the end of it before you know it. After finishing didactics and taking RC for the first time in the fall, I feel like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. All of that anxiety and stress that comes with test taking was brutal. It is really hard on you and your mental health when you're constantly trying to survive through every exam. Every semester definitely has its own challenges and it's different for everybody. I've been in clinical for a full year now and the amount of growth has been astronomical. You go from this baby srna that doesn't know what you're doing in the OR and you're so uncomfortable and you don't have your flow down yet, to this somewhat confident anesthesia provider, and you're now part of the team. Your preceptor and your anesthesiologist are your colleagues. You are working as a team together, and instead of your preceptor telling you what to do, you are now collaborating with them. You're talking to them about your plan. You're able to trust yourself more and make decisions for your patient, and it is just an incredible journey to see yourself go through. How's your mental health? Some of you may know from Instagram that my first semester of CRNA school was really hard on my mental health. I already have baseline anxiety, and so that first semester where everything was chaotic and brand new and learning how to study for a graduate program was so tough on my anxiety and stress levels. It got so uncontrolled that I had to get on meds for it. I will always be an advocate for your mental health because you cannot go through this program without taking care of yourself and your mental health. There is no shame, no judgment. If you're going through it, get help as soon as possible. I am in a much better place with my mental health now. I have better time management skills. I take time to rest and take days off from school, which was incredibly hard for me to do in the beginning part of the program, especially through didactics. You're just in survival mode, trying to get through each week. So being able to manage my time wisely and control my anxiety and stress levels by spending time with my loved ones and doing things that I love outside of school has really alleviated all of that anxiety, stress, and burnout. What is a priority for you to do between semesters to help you decompress? Honestly, sleep and rest is my top priority. We work 4 days out of the week in clinicals, full 10-hour days. And on our days off, we are writing our papers, doing homework, and if you're in didactic, you are just studying as much as you can. So in between, we get about a week usually off, and sometimes we get 2 weeks off, but it's an incredibly short amount of time. So other than resting, I spend time with my loved ones. I try to go on trips or little vacations if I have the energy for it. When looking at schools, what is a high attrition rate? This is a really good question. And this is from the CRNA Club's website. Shout out to Sachi. And I think she said this perfectly. Attrition rate is basically the percentage of students that do not continue on after the first year of being in CRNA school. People consider this the fail-out rate. Anything above 10% deserves a closer look, and you want to start asking yourself, why are students not continuing on? Is it just the class size is really small, therefore if one person drops out, the attrition rate seems really high, or are there students not being supported? This is something that you really need to assess and do your research on when you're looking at the programs that you're interested in. Talk to the people that have gone through the programs that you're interested in and get an insight on how their experience was. So definitely do your research before you choose your program. Did you put 10K in ibonds? Can you talk about the experience and the profit that you got? I did. I put 10 grand in ibonds back in the end of 2021. I just let it sit there and grow the past 2 years or so. I haven't done anything to it, haven't touched it. And for those of you who don't know, ibonds are savings bonds through the government. You can get them through treasurydirect.gov, and the interest rates are based on inflation. They earn interest monthly and they are compounded semi-annually. So you want to lock in your money when the inflation rate is high. So you want it to work in your favor. You can take your money out after 1 year of placing them into these ibonds. So I placed 10 grand in the end of 2021, right? And as of right now, I earned $1,348 just by letting it sit there for 2.5 years. I had a great experience with it. It's another option for you to put your money somewhere where it grows. It's very little effort, and being able to take it out and get it in your bank account in 1 to 2 days is amazing. What can an ICU nurse focus on to prepare for CRNA school? So you basically want to be the best critical care nurse, right? So when you're in the ICU and your day-to-day work life, you want to focus on your meds, all of your drips, learn more about their mechanisms of action, how they actually work in your patient's body, and why we use them. When they're intubating your patient, focus on the sequence of events that lead up to the intubation and the whole process of it. Pay close attention to all of the medications that you're using to intubate, because that is what you're going to be doing every day, multiple times a day in your career. Learn about the ventilator. We are the masters of airway and ventilation. Know the different ventilation modes. Why do we choose one over the other? And how do we wean them off? How do we get to a point that we can extubate a patient? Learn your cardiac rhythms and know how to treat abnormal ones. Those are basic ACLS algorithms that you need to know in order to take care of your patient during an emergency situation. Be a part of codes when they do happen. Even if it's not your patient, go be a part of the code. Get familiar with the drugs and all the interventions that they're performing, because during a code in the OR, you are going to be in charge of running that code. You are not going to be doing chest compressions. You're not going to be recording. You are going to be performing everything that you can to get that patient back. Learn as much as you can with what's going on with your patient population, the devices that you use in your unit, and the big thing is just being an active learner. You have to seek out opportunities for you to learn each time you go into work. If you are not sure about a concept or you don't know much about it, it is up to you to learn more about that concept. You have to invest in yourself and your education, because that will only make a well-rounded ICU nurse and prepare you to be an srna. For example, if you're new in the ICU and you're still trying to figure out ABGs, keep trying to interpret them, keep learning about them, keep looking at different patients that you have and why that's happening to them. Do this for every concept that you are unsure about until you are able to teach that back to someone else. When you are at work, you are there to learn, to give it your best, seek out opportunities, and show your interest in growing as a nurse. Pros and cons of your school. I won't be talking about specifics about my program while I am still in it. Every program has their own pros and cons. There is no perfect program out there, but if you are looking at multiple programs, do your research. Look at their curriculum. Do you prefer a front-loaded or an integrated program? Do you have to travel for clinical sites? Are you willing to move out of state just to go to a clinical site? Would that be a deal breaker for you and your family? How much does it cost? Is this within your budget? Do you have a financial plan in place for this program? What is their attrition rate? What are their pass rates? It's so important to network and get feedback on different programs, people's experiences, whether it be CRNAs or srnas, but take everything with a grain of salt, because everyone has their own unique journey in CRNA school. One person might tell you how incredibly challenging it was and it was absolute hell for them. Meanwhile, another person might say, oh, it was fine. And so you really can't base it off of just one person's experience with a program. Do you want to work in an independent CRNA model? Eventually I do, and you will see when you go through different clinical sites and when you talk to other people in the anesthesia field, there are different anesthesia care team models with varying degrees of how much you can do as a CRNA and how much supervision you have from the anesthesiologist. Even here in Florida, where I do my clinicals, one site, the MDs are there during induction, and that's the only time that they're in the room. But in another site that I'm currently in, they don't even go in the room at all. You are by yourself the whole time unless you need them. They are always there if you need help. There are other CRNAs there too, if you ever come into an issue. As you can see, that can really influence on someone's choice whether to stay in a certain care team model. I'm still unsure about whether I want to stay in Florida or go to a state where I can practice independently or have more freedom. So we will see. I still have a year and 3 months until I graduate, and I probably won't be looking until this fall. So I will keep you updated on that. Nicora or Block Buddy app. I've only used Nicora and I love it. Even the free version is a very good resource. I haven't used Block Buddy yet, but I have heard good things about it. I think having at least one resource that you can turn to, especially when you're at a clinical site where you are able to do a lot of blocks, or if a case comes up and you have to review it very quickly, and if you show that you know how to do a block or at least know a little bit about it, they will be more inclined to letting you do the actual block. These apps are so helpful with reminding you of the landmarks and the techniques. Like with anything else, it is not perfect. What you see on a picture or video is not always what you see on your patient's anatomy. So it is a big learning curve, but it's a part of the experience, and blocks are super fun. Do you use any templates for printing out care plans? I only use the one that was provided for us from our program. We are required to only use that specific care plan. I like it. I think it's sufficient. It shows everything that you need to know about your patient, their history, and your anesthetic plan, and all of your interventions and possible complications from them. And I've seen care plans from other programs, and they are either about the same length or just a little more or less. How many semesters do you have left, and how do you feel getting closer to finishing? I have 4 semesters left, and I am getting so excited. I'm at the point where I finished didactics. I finished most of my specialties already, and we're working on our doctoral project, so it feels like a good flow. I see the progress that I've made throughout the program. It feels absolutely amazing to be in clinicals and providing anesthesia to patients, and I'm just really excited for my future in anesthesia. And this year I'm really honing in on improving my skills and my knowledge, and by this time next year I will be preparing for boards, getting ready for graduation, and I know it's gonna fly by. Will travel nursing hurt me in applying for CRNA school? Background in surgical trauma ICU, 2 years in a level 1 trauma center. I have the same background in a surgical trauma ICU in a level 1 trauma center, and no, it did not hurt me when I became a travel nurse and I was applying to schools. I did not have it. I did not have any issues at all. I was able to get letters of recommendations and gain more experience through my contracts. Because of my surgical trauma and transplant ICU experience, I didn't have much cardiac experience. So when I became a travel nurse, I sought out CV-ICU contracts, so I was able to learn more about cardiac. And they know that you need to save a lot of money for CRNA school, and one of the best ways to do that is by travel nursing. As long as you already have a solid background, I say go for it. There are many people who are travel nurses who are also applying to CRNA school. This is a question I get a lot, and it's how many hours in a day do you spend studying in CRNA school? It depends where you are in the program. During the didactic portion of my program, I was studying about 8 hours a day, even on my days off, because we had an exam every week or every 2 weeks, and it was just so much information to learn. It really is how they say that you're like drinking from a fire hose or a fire hydrant. Even with really great time management skills, it took up all of your life. It just doesn't stop. You get a lecture after lecture. You have to know how to study the best and how you can manage your time efficiently, that you're able to retain and do well on your exams. And when you're studying for the C or your mock boards, you can kind of pace yourself. You don't have that big of a pressure compared to didactics, and you continue to study until you graduate and take your boards. There is no time where you're not studying because you don't want to lose any of that information that you've worked so hard for to remember. You just have to keep reviewing. You have to allot time each week to reviewing concepts so you can keep that going until you have to take boards. I have a video I just put out on how I studied for the C. If you're interested in that, I'll link it up here. Also, in a doctorate program, there's a lot of self-teaching. You can't expect to be spoon-fed all of the information because even on the allotted lecture time, it's just not enough time for professors to go through everything that they have to within that time frame. So it's up to you to go home, go through concepts that you don't understand, and teach yourself more about it. You have to spend more time reading the textbooks, watch videos, go through Apex or Prodigy, do practice questions, talk to your classmates, your study group, other srnas or crnas, and learn as much as you can. If you don't understand something, you have to ask, and so you can understand it for yourself. The $100K you saved was for the whole program, tuition and living expenses. The $100K that I saved is not for my whole program and my living expenses because my tuition alone for the whole program is $100K. I have a video on how I saved $100K before school started. I'll link it up below. And so I have to take out loans in order to pay for cost of living and other expenses. What are your recommendations for GRE for a DNAP program? I guess they're asking what are the study recommendations in order to get the score that you need for these programs. And I used Magoosh online. I studied for about a month or so before taking the GRE. I took it once and I got the minimum that I needed for my program. And that is my absolute least favorite exam. And I just studied as much as I could. I went through the practice questions on Magoosh, get used to the reading. They have very specific styles of questions that they ask on reading comprehension and vocabulary and the different math questions and equations. You have to get used to those calculations and know the different writing prompts that they ask you to write. The Magoosh online or through the app I thought was very helpful. You can go through the vocab words through there too and practice your writing. And if you are not a good writer, try to do a prompt each week and get used to writing on the spot. Are there any cheap certifications for new grads? The only certifications that I've gotten is the CCRN and the TCRN because I worked in the trauma ICU and I absolutely love trauma. And I suggest you get certifications that you're passionate about. And if your goal is CRNA school, CCRN is the most important one. A lot of cardiac nurses also take the CSC, so you can also do that if you're in cardiac. How do you pay for school? And I answered this in the other question, but I saved a lot of money through travel nursing, and most people have to take out loans. It's a big investment, but the return is so great, and this is a lucrative career that is in high demand, so you will not have a hard time getting a job once you graduate. What was your GPA in undergrad, and how important do you think it was in getting an ICU position? My undergrad GPA was a 3.3 for my nursing GPA and 3.8 overall. I think it matters more if you're in the practicum portion of your nursing program. Like for example, for my nursing program, you had to get certain grades in order for you to have your practicum in the ICU. And being in the ICU opens a lot of doors for you. Just by being in the ICU, you're able to network, meet the manager, talk to them about your interest in becoming a nurse in their unit, and that is one way for you to secure a job. So a lot of people work really hard so they get that ICU practicum. As far as getting an actual job there, my GPA didn't matter for me when it came to getting the actual position. Comment down below if any of you had that experience where your GPA actually mattered during your new grad ICU interview. But for me, I was a nurse tech in the ICU while I was in nursing school, so I was already offered a job before graduating and becoming an RN. So you can start working in the ICU as a nurse tech, get your foot in the door, reach out to the managers, introduce yourself. I'm really interested in becoming a nurse in your unit, and keep them updated as you get closer and closer to graduation. What is your favorite thing, academic or not, that you learned in CRNA school? This is kind of a tough one because we've learned so many cool things, and I think my absolute favorite thing is being able to manage my patient using my own judgment and being able to call the shots, have my little anesthesia corner where I just manage the patient is absolutely amazing. When you've been an ICU nurse for a while, you get kind of used to being in a box. You can only titrate this medication within this range or give this med after this many hours. As an anesthesia provider, you have so much freedom and that autonomy to fully take care of your patient. And everything that I loved about being an ICU nurse, I do as an anesthesia provider. So being able to do all those skills and apply your knowledge is definitely my favorite part. What to wear for a CRNA school interview. You want to look your best. You want to dress to the nines because this is your chance to impress these programs, and you want to show how much you deserve to be a student in their program. I would recommend wearing business attire, clean suit, blazer, dress pants. I'll show some examples up here on the screen. You want to present yourself as a confident ICU nurse and as a future doctoral candidate. Along with what you wear, also have a smile on your face, get that positive energy going, let your personality shine through. Even though you're nervous as can be, these little details can really add to your interview, so make sure you get these right. And these are CRNAs that are interviewing you that are so detail oriented, so you will really want to present your best self. I think I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you guys so much for sending all those questions, and if you've stayed until the very end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!